sanctions against
The past
Russia.
5 years have been extremely eventful for NATO's Secretary-General Fogh Rasmussen. Now, as he approaches the end of his mandate, Euronews spoke to him about the alliance's future.
Mr. Rasmussen, thank you for talking to Euronews. You've been serving as a NATO Secretary-General for 5 years and more. How do you assess the security situation in Europe over last month?
The security environment has changed dramatically. Russia's illegal military actions in Ukraine are a wake-up call. They have reminded us that we cannot take security for granted, so of course we have to adapt to that new situation.
President Putin said this week that he had no right to let NATO forces in Crimea. That's why it was annexed. Did you really take into consideration these sort of Russia's security concerns?
Yeah, but we have never had any intention to deploy NATO troops to Crimea. So it's a very, very bad excuse for what is an illegal and illegitimate annexation of Crimea into the Russian Federation. There's no excuse. Russia is in a blatant breach of all its international commitments and also in a breach of the fundamental principles of the NATO-Russia cooperation.
Do you still see Russia's involvement in east of Ukraine, and how do you assess the armed standoff there?
There's no doubt that Russia is heavily involved in destabilizing the eastern part of Ukraine. They allow a flow of weapons and equipment and also fighters across the border into Ukraine. We call on Russia to stop supporting the separatist groups, and we call on Russia to withdraw troops from the Russia-Ukraine border. We have seen recently a new build-up of Russian troops in the border region.
Is NATO boosting its presence in the vicinity of Russia?
We have enhanced air policing over the 3 Baltic states, deployed naval vessels to the Baltic Sea and the Black Sea. We have conducted more exercises in Poland and the Baltic states. So at sea, in the air, on ground, you see more NATO presence. It's not offensive, it's purely defensive, with the aim to ensure effective protection of our allies.
How do you describe Russia? As a partner or now more as an adversary?
Actually, we have spent more than 20 years to build a constructive relationship with Russia. But I have to say, Russia doesn't behave as a partner. And we can see in the Russian military documents that they consider NATO an adversary, and of course we have to adapt to that.
What lessons are there to be learned from Russian military tactics vis-à-vis Ukraine?
We have seen Russian armed forces act very swiftly. We have seen more modern Russian armed forces compared to what we saw when they attacked Georgia in 2008. And this is a reason why I urge NATO allies to increase defense spending and step up modernization of our armed forces. During the last 5 years, Russia has increased its defense spending by 50%, while NATO countries in average have decreased their defense spending by 20%. And of course that's not sustainable. What we have seen in Ukraine is a game changer, and it's now time to stop the cuts, reverse the trend, and gradually increase defense spending.
We're talking about security situation in Europe. What sort of a threat do you think is coming from the Sunni insurgents group that has captured part of Iraq and Syria, and what is there for NATO to do about it?
Again, NATO is focused on defense and protection of our allies. That's why we have deployed Patriot missiles to Turkey to protect Turkey against possible missile attacks from Syria. But of course, in general, the situation in the region is a matter of grave concern. It is publicly known that the Iraqi government has requested assistance from individual NATO allies.
But now we can see aircraft from Iran and from Russia operating alongside American aircraft. Doesn't mean that NATO is already working with these countries.
It's not NATO as an alliance, but individual NATO allies are engaged. And what you see now is really how much the international community as such is concerned about the situation and the spread of extremism and terrorism. And it requires a unified response from the international community across traditional lines of division.
And the last question to you as an outgoing NATO Secretary General, what was your main achievement?
We have a stronger, a fitter and faster NATO. Despite cuts in defense budgets, you see a much stronger alliance today because of our operations in Afghanistan, Kosovo and elsewhere. Our armed forces are now used to work together and operate together. They are more tightly connected than ever and more combat ready than we have ever seen. At the same time, we have invested in new capabilities. Among other things, we have started building a missile defense. We have decided also to strengthen our cyber defense. So all in all, we have, I would say, cut fat and built muscles. So you see a much stronger NATO today.
Okay, thank you very much, Mr. Rasmussen, for the interview.
You're welcome. Yeah, thank you.